My cheating fiancé demanded, "I want my half of the wedding fund back," after contributing only 20%. I replied, "Fair enough." Then I transferred her half of the remaining $2,000 after all deposits were paid. She was left frantically screaming on the phone that I stole her money. I, 32M, thought I had found my forever person. We'd been together for 4 years, engaged for 8 months, and I was 3 weeks away from what I believed would be the happiest day of my life. The wedding was planned, deposits paid, and I was foolishly counting down the days until I could call her my wife. That illusion shattered on a Tuesday evening when I came home early from a work trip. I had texted her that morning saying my conference ended a day early and I'd be driving back. She responded with excitement, saying she missed me and couldn't wait to see me. What I found instead was her car in our driveway alongside a familiar silver sedan that belonged to my best man. My stomach dropped as I quietly entered through the back door, hearing sounds from upstairs that made my blood run cold. I stood frozen in our kitchen, processing what was happening above me. Part of me wanted to storm upstairs and confront them, but something held me back. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was the need for absolute certainty before I destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life. I grabbed my phone and started recording as I climbed the stairs. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, and what I saw through that crack confirmed my worst fears. 4 years together, 8 months engaged, and she was tangled up with the man I had asked to stand beside me at our wedding. I backed away silently, my hands shaking as I saved the video to multiple locations. Then I did something that surprised even me. I left. I drove to a coffee shop and sat there for 2 hours, staring at my phone, trying to process what I had just witnessed. When I finally returned home, his car was gone. She was in the living room, looking relaxed and happy, asking me about my trip. The casual way she kissed me hello, the ease with which she lied about her day, made me realize this wasn't a one-time mistake. This was calculated, ongoing, and I had been completely blind to it. I told her I was exhausted and went to bed early, claiming I needed to catch up on sleep. She seemed relieved I wasn't being affectionate, which told me everything I needed to know about how long this had been going on. That night, I lay awake planning. The rational part of me knew I should confront her immediately, but the wounded part of me wanted something more. I wanted her to feel the same shock and betrayal I was experiencing. More importantly, I wanted to protect myself from what was clearly going to be a messy breakup. The wedding fund had been a point of pride for both of us. We had opened a joint account specifically for wedding expenses 18 months ago. I had contributed $23,000 over time, money saved from bonuses, overtime, and careful budgeting. She had contributed $4,200, claiming she was paying for other wedding-related expenses separately, like her dress and some decorations. The next morning, she left for work as usual. I called in sick and spent the day making phone calls and taking screenshots. I documented every deposit into our wedding account, every withdrawal, every receipt, and invoice. What I found was even more infuriating than I expected. Not only had she contributed far less than she claimed, but she had also been lying about her separate contributions. The wedding dress, she said, cost $2,800. She had charged it to a credit card that she wanted me to help pay off after the wedding. The decorations she claimed to be handling? I found emails showing she had been trying to get me to cover those costs too, just hadn't brought it up yet. I also discovered something else during my investigation. She had been texting my best man for months. Not just recently, months. The affair had been going on since at least February, meaning she had been cheating for 6 months while we planned our wedding, picked out rings, and sent out save the dates. By Thursday, I had everything documented. Bank statements, text message screenshots from her phone when she left it unlocked, photos of receipts, and of course, the video from Tuesday. I also quietly contacted a lawyer to understand my options regarding the joint account and any financial entanglements we might have. Friday evening, I made my move. She was on the couch, wedding planning magazine in her lap, talking about final headcount numbers for the reception. The casual way she discussed our future together while actively betraying it made my skin crawl. I told her we needed to talk. She looked up with mild curiosity, probably expecting a discussion about seating arrangements or menu choices. Instead, I placed my phone on the coffee table and played the video. Her face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, recognition, terror, and then something I didn't expect: defiance. She demanded to know how I could violate her privacy by recording her. She accused me of being controlling and sneaky. She claimed it was my fault for not being emotionally available enough, for working too much, for not making her feel desired. At no point in that first conversation did she apologize or show genuine remorse. Then she said something that sealed her fate. She told me that if I was going to be dramatic about this, she wanted her half of the wedding fund back so she could start over. Her half. Of the $27,200 we had saved together, she wanted half, despite contributing less than 20%. I told her that seemed fair and that I'd take care of it. She seemed surprised by how reasonable I was being, probably expecting more of a fight. I explained that I needed a few days to cancel everything and sort out the finances, and she seemed satisfied with that timeline. What she didn't know was that I had already started canceling things. That weekend, while she stayed at her sister's place to think, I went into overdrive. I called every vendor, every venue, everyone involved in our wedding. The caterer was understanding and returned 75% of our deposit since we were canceling more than 2 weeks out. The photographer was less flexible, but still returned 40%. The florist kept their deposit entirely, but it was only $300. The venue was the biggest loss. They kept $3,200 out of our $4,000 deposit, but their contract clearly stated this policy for cancellations less than 30 days out. By Monday, I had canceled everything cancelable and collected every refund available. Out of the $27,200 we had saved, I recovered $18,400. The remaining $8,800 had been lost to non-refundable deposits and cancellation fees. But here's what she didn't realize. I also canceled things she thought were already paid for but weren't. The limo service she assumed was booked. I had only put down a small holding deposit. The DJ she thought was secured? Same situation. The cake she believed was ordered? The final payment wasn't due until the week of the wedding. When I was done, we had $2,000 left in the account from the original $27,200. Tuesday morning, she called me, sounding calmer and more collected. She said she had thought about everything over the weekend and realized she wanted to work things out. She claimed the affair was a mistake, that she loved me, and that she wanted to save our relationship and our wedding. I listened to her rehearse speech and then told her it was too late. I had already canceled everything. The silence on the other end of the phone stretched for nearly 30 seconds. Then she exploded. She screamed that I had no right to make unilateral decisions about their wedding. She demanded to know what I had done with their money. She threatened to sue me for theft and fraud. I calmly explained that I had done exactly what she asked. I was giving her half of the wedding fund. Her half of the remaining $2,000 would be $1,000, which I would transfer to her personal account immediately. The screaming got louder. She accused me of stealing her money, of manipulating the situation, of being vindictive and cruel. She demanded her fair share of the original amount, not the remaining amount. I asked her to clarify what she meant by fair share. Did she mean half of the total, despite contributing only 20%? Or did she mean the actual amount she had contributed, which was $4,200? She wanted half of the original $27,200 to $13,600. I told her that was interesting math, considering she had only put in $4,200. If we were being truly fair, she should get back exactly what she contributed, minus her proportional share of the losses from the cancellation fees. Her proportional share of the $8,800 in losses would be 20%, $1,760. So technically, she should receive $4,200 minus $1,760, which equals $2,440. But I was feeling generous, I said, so I'd stick with the original offer of half of what remained, $1,000. She hung up on me. Within an hour, she was at my door with her sister in tow for moral support. Her sister demanded to know what kind of man would financially abuse a woman this way. She accused me of being calculating and heartless. I invited them both inside and showed them the documentation I had prepared. Bank statements showing every deposit, screenshots of her text messages, receipts and invoices for every canceled vendor, the video of her affair. Her sister's tune changed quickly. She turned to her and asked how long the cheating had been going on. When she admitted it had been months, her sister became quiet and uncomfortable. I explained the situation calmly and rationally. She had asked for half of the wedding fund. I had liquidated the wedding fund as efficiently as possible to minimize losses. Half of what remained was $1,000. If she preferred, I could give her back exactly what she contributed minus her share of the losses, which would be $2,440, but that was more than half of what was left. Her sister suggested maybe they should just take the $1,000 and move on, but she wasn't ready to give up. She accused me of deliberately sabotaging the refunds to spite her. She claimed I could have gotten more money back if I had really tried. I pulled out my phone and called the caterer while she was standing there. I asked them to confirm the refund policy and the amount they had returned. They confirmed everything I had told her. I called the venue next. Same story. By the time I finished making calls, even her sister was convinced that I had done everything reasonably possible to recover the money. She stormed out, shouting that she would find a lawyer and sue me for everything. Update 1. A week later, I received a letter from her lawyer. It was more bluster than substance, but it demanded the return of her rightful share of the wedding fund and threatened legal action for breach of fiduciary duty regarding the joint account. I forwarded the letter to my own lawyer, who had been expecting something like this. He drafted a response that was both professional and devastating. The response laid out the timeline of her affair, the documentation of her financial contributions, and the reasonable efforts I had made to minimize losses when canceling the wedding. It also pointed out that she had initiated the breakup by her infidelity and had requested the division of assets. Most importantly, it included an offer. She could accept the $1,000 transfer I had already offered, or we could proceed with a full forensic accounting of the relationship's finances, including her credit card debt that she had expected me to help pay, the rent and utilities I had covered disproportionately over the years, and various other financial imbalances in our relationship. Her lawyer called my lawyer within 48 hours to say their client was willing to accept the $1,000 settlement. But I wasn't done with her yet. Update 2. 2 weeks after the breakup, I found out she was already planning a new wedding with my former best man. Apparently, their affair had been more serious than just physical. They had been emotionally involved for months and had been planning to be together long before I discovered them. This revelation made me realize that her request for half the wedding fund wasn't just about money. She had been planning to use my savings to fund her new wedding. That's when I discovered something else. She had been telling people a very different version of events. According to her story, I had been controlling and financially abusive throughout our relationship. She claimed I had hidden money from her and had deliberately sabotaged the wedding refunds to punish her for leaving me. She had also been telling people that she caught me cheating, which was why she had turned to my best man for comfort. I realized I needed to protect myself from this narrative, so I decided to be more proactive about sharing the truth. I created a private social media post visible only to close friends and family. I shared the basic facts. I had discovered her affair with my best man. She had asked for half the wedding fund despite contributing only 20%, and I had given her exactly what she requested, half of the remaining money after necessary cancellations. I included screenshots of her text asking for her half of the money and my response agreeing to her request. The post spread quickly through our social circle. Within days, the narrative had shifted completely. People who had initially been sympathetic to her began asking uncomfortable questions about her version of events. Her family started reaching out to me privately. Her father apologized for his daughter's behavior and thanked me for handling the situation with more grace than it deserved. Her mother sent me a long message expressing her disappointment in her daughter and her hope that I would find someone who deserved my loyalty. Even some of his friends began distancing themselves from both of them when they realized the full scope of what had happened. Update 3. 3 months later, I heard through mutual friends that their relationship was falling apart. Apparently, planning a wedding on a $1,000 budget was more challenging than they had anticipated. But more importantly, they were discovering that a relationship built on betrayal doesn't have the strongest foundation. He was paranoid that she would cheat on him the way she had cheated on me. She was resentful that he wasn't as financially stable as I had been. The irony wasn't lost on me. They had destroyed 2 relationships and a friendship for something that wasn't even making them happy. 6 months later, I heard they had broken up entirely. She had moved back in with her parents and was working 2 jobs to pay off the credit card debt she had accumulated during our relationship. Debt she had been expecting me to help her with after we got married. As for me, I took the $18,400 I had recovered from the wedding fund and used it as a down payment on a small house outside the city. It needed work, but it was mine, and working on it became therapeutic. I also started therapy to process the betrayal and understand how I had missed the signs of her affair for so long. What I learned was that I hadn't missed the signs. I had actively ignored them because I was so invested in the idea of our future together that I couldn't face the reality of who she really was. A year later, I met someone new through a hiking group I had joined. She was kind, honest, and refreshingly direct about her feelings and intentions. When I eventually told her the story of my previous relationship, her response was simple. Anyone who would cheat on someone while planning a wedding with them was showing you exactly who they are, and I had been smart to believe them. We've been together for 8 months now, and while we've talked about the future, we're taking things slowly. She understands why I might be cautious about marriage, and she's never pressured me about timelines or commitments. The most satisfying part of this whole experience wasn't the revenge, though that was admittedly gratifying. It was the clarity that came afterward. I realized that I had been so focused on the idea of being married that I hadn't been paying attention to whether I was marrying the right person. She did me a favor by cheating, though she certainly didn't intend to. She freed me from a marriage that would have been built on lies and showed me exactly what kind of partner I don't want. Looking back, giving her exactly what she asked for, half of the remaining wedding fund, was probably the most honest thing either of us did in the final weeks of our relationship. She asked for half, and she got half. The fact that half wasn't as much as she expected was a consequence of her own choices, not my manipulation. Sometimes the best revenge is simply allowing people to experience the natural consequences of their actions. She chose to cheat. She chose to ask for half the money. She chose to try to manipulate the narrative afterward. I chose to document everything, handle the situation legally and ethically, and move forward with my life. In the end, I think I chose better than she did.